Good. Okay.
All right, welcome everybody for our public hearing. We have two scheduled today that have been posted in our official county newspapers, both the Putnam County Press and Putnam County Courier. This is the first of two scheduled public hearings on several local laws before us. One of our public hearings will be 3:30 today on November 25th. The other one will be later at 5 p.m. I will start with the opening call to order. The local laws before us to amend. I'm not going to read the whole entirety of it. It's in the agenda. It was properly noticed. Chapter 41, Code of Putnam County, entitled Deposit and Investment Policy. That's Resolution 304. Strengthening the term limit provisions for the Office of Putnam County Legislature. That's Resolution 309. Strengthening the term limit provisions for the Office of Putnam County Executive. That's Resolution 310. And we'll open again, call to order. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask our Deputy County Executive, Army Veteran, James Burpo, to lead us.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do want to start by saying this is our second public hearing. We've been live streaming on our YouTube channel. I'm very pleased that our county legislature has they've started live streaming their committee meetings and their full meetings. Public hearings, I'm not sure they're there yet, but I hope that will come along as well. And that's all very exciting stuff. You can go on the county's YouTube channel. It's on our county's website as well. Our next item, our first real item, is the Resolution 304. So I'm going to ask our Communications Director, Chris Formisano, to read the public notice for Resolution 304.
Thank you, County Executive. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the County Executive of the County of Putnam in the County Office Building at 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York 10512 on the 25th day of November 2024 at 3:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. concerning a local law amending the Code of the County of Putnam as approved and adopted by the Putnam County Legislature on November 6, 2024 by Resolution 304. Adding additional language to specify the intent of the county's investment policy, update the list of designated official depositories with increased deposit limits, and expand the number of cash management programs that can be utilized by the county. These amendments were made to assist with the meeting of the purpose and objectives of the investment policy as stated within Section 4.1 of the policy. Copies of the local law are available at the office of the Putnam County Legislature, room 318, 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York 10512. At the aforementioned time and place, all persons interested in the subject matter thereof will be heard concerning the same. Comments will be also accepted via regular mail, submitted an above referenced address. To send an email, please go to the following website and click send us a message at putnamcounty.gov/county-executive, or fax to 845-808-1901. This local law shall take effect immediately. Dated November 14th, 2024. Carmel, New York, signed C. Compton, Spain, Putnam County Attorney.
Thank you, Chris. We will move forward with public comments. We typically try to start with those who are in attendance, and then we'll go to those that were submitted, if any, digitally or in mail. So, if there are any comments from the public on Resolution 304? There being none, I will ask our confidential secretary, Lisa Rangali, have there been any public comments submitted through postal, U.S. mail, or email? Okay. We will move on to agenda item 4, reading of the public notice. Chris is going to get a workout here. Resolution number 309. Mr. Formisano.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the County Executive of the County of Putnam at the County Office Building, 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York 10512 on the 25th day of November 2024 at 3:30 and 5 p.m. concerning a local law amending the charter of the County of Putnam as approved and adopted by the Putnam County Legislature on November 13th, 2024 by Resolution 309, modifying section 2.02 to exclude partial terms from the calculation of a county legislator's maximum term in office, as well as requiring a unanimous vote by the entire county legislature to amend, modify, or repeal the term limit provisions in Section 2.02. Subdivision D of Section 304-B is amended to modify the veto process as it relates to the amended Section 2.02, requiring a unanimous vote to override a veto of an enactment to amend, modify, or repeal the term limit provisions in Section 2.02. Section 1501 is amended to modify the process of amending the Putnam County Charter, requiring unanimous vote to amend, modify, or repeal the term limit provisions in Section 202. Copies of the local law are available at the office of the Putnam County Legislature, room 318, 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York, 10512. At the aforesaid time and place, all persons interested in the subject matter thereof will be heard concerning the same. Comments will also be accepted via regular mail submitted to the above referenced address. To send an email, go to the following website and click Send Us a Message, putnamcountyny.com/county-executive, and fax to 845-808-1901. This local law shall take effect 60 days after its final enactment and is subject to permissive referendum. Dated November 14th, 2024, Carmel, New York. Signed C. Compton, Spain, Putnam County Attorney.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We will open it up once again for public comments. Those in attendance will start first.
Yeah.
Mr. Birmingham.
Yep.
Great, cool.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Birmingham, and I'm a resident of the town of Southeast. I'm acting solely as a citizen of the county and in no other capacity. I'm here today to speak in support of resolutions number 309 and 310 of 2024, adopted by the county legislature on November 6th, which provide for the strengthening of the current term limit provisions in the county charter for the offices of county legislator and county executive. These resolutions require a unanimous vote of the legislature to revise, amend, or repeal term limits. First, some legislative history. In 2011 and 2013, the Putnam County Legislature enacted two charter laws which amended the county charter to establish term limits for the offices of Putnam County Executive and County Legislator respectively. Such local laws provide that the county executive may serve a maximum of 2 consecutive full terms, while county legislators may serve a maximum of 4 3-year terms. As it stands today, all that is required to repeal term limits in Putnam County is a mere 2/3 vote of the county legislature, subject to permissive referendum. In other words, these important charter provisions relating to term limits may be abolished with a mere 6-vote majority of the county legislature. I believe that such a low threshold is insufficient to keep the term limit promises made to Putnam County's residents. I believe that a unanimous vote of the county legislature should be required in order to revise or repeal term limits. It's a sad but obvious reflection on our body politic today to say that Americans are becoming more and more disillusioned and skeptical when it comes to trust in their government. Higher taxes, oppressive regulation, political corruption, and scandal have all contributed to a general feeling of distrust and suspicion by America's voters of their elected leaders. All too often, promises of reform and improvement are made by those running for office, and those promises are suddenly abandoned once the election is over and campaign scrutiny has died down. However, there's some good news. Starting about 30 years ago, there began a growing and positive trend for the enactment of term limits. Not only was this trend the genesis of frustrated voters tired of the same politicians using the levers of incumbency and patronage to become permanent members of the governing class, but there was also a real response from those same political officials to enact meaningful term limit reforms. There was a revival of the concept of temporary citizen legislator, someone who, for a short time, would put aside their private business interests to serve their fellow residents. This movement sprung from a fundamental concept that engendered transparency in government, promoting accountability of public officials, and increasing public trust, as well as paving the way for new voices to be heard and new ideas to be implemented. These very concepts played a large role in establishing term limits right here in Putnam County. While I was an initial skeptic of term limits at the time, and in fact voted against term limits, I've now come to see the benefits of term limits which have accrued to Putnam's benefit. New members of the county legislature have been elected who have brought their own experience, know-how, and experience to bear, all for the good of Putnam's residents. New ideas on how to govern and how to implement new policies have been given, and innovative and tax-saving programs
that have been overlooked by previous generations of elected officials have been implemented. In short, I have become a convert to term limits, and I now have an overwhelming zeal of a convert. For these reasons and many others, I believe it's necessary to put in place measures to lock down term limits and keep the promises made to Putnam's residents. Approving resolutions numbers 309 and 310 will provide a strong protection in preventing any mischief which may ensue in the future. So why do we have to have these protections, I believe? Well, while I'm excited and enthused about our current term limit provisions, I'm also aware that much mischief can abound when legislative and executive terms are close to sunsetting and there's an urge to pull a fast one. Perhaps the most glaring example of this is the extension of term limits for New York City mayor in 2013. At that time, mayors in New York City were limited to 2 4-year terms. However, Mayor Michael Bloomberg and his compatriots on the city council revised term limits so that each of them would be able to run for an additional term despite the hue and cry from a great many New York City residents. This was done through a simple legislative maneuver. There was no public vote. There was no supermajority required to make this change. Rather, the term limit change was made with a simple legislative revision. Many years later, Mayor Bloomberg bragged about this mischief by stating at a 2020 U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting, quote, "Being mayor is the best job in the world. I loved it for 12 years. And if you have a minor problem with term limits, simply change the law." It seems that Mayor Bloomberg said the quiet part out loud. Mischief certainly abounds when certain oxen are bored. Resolutions 309 and 310 before you today aim to prevent such mischief. Earlier forms of these resolutions were first put before the members of the county legislature this past August. Since such time, these proposals have gone through much change and improvement. There have been 2 full legislative committee meetings where legislators, members of the administration, and the public have had the opportunity to review, discuss, and make improvements to the original forms of these resolutions. In fact, I had a conversation with the county executive in August at the Brewster Founders Day Street Fair about the original forms of these resolutions. He made me aware of how the original ambitious nature of the original drafts could be seen as a bit of an overreach. I took that advice to heart. His input provided a perspective that hadn't perhaps been considered and spurred more revisions which made the draft local laws before us today even better. Following the many months of legislative process, public input, and news articles which broadened the audience for this important legislation, I'm happy to say that both of these measures were passed earlier this month by the county legislature. While some have lamented the number of charter changes that have been proposed and adopted this year, these proposals before you today hold real promise for real reform and are responsive to the desires of Putnam's residents. I'd like to say just a quick word about mandatory referendum. My most fervent hope and ambition had been that any revision or repeal of term limits could only come about with the approval of Putnam's voters through a mandatory referendum. In fact, the early drafts of resolutions 309 and 310 provided for mandatory referendum to revise or repeal term limits. Unfortunately, and to my dismay, while other levels of government, towns, villages, and cities require mandatory referendum to curtail the power of their local lawmakers to revise or repeal term limits, such requirement is absent for counties, and in fact, such mandatory referendum is prohibited. You see, the drafting and amending of county charters in New York State is governed by Article 4 of the Municipal Home Rule Law. In order to curtail the powers of the town board or city council with respect to the revision of term limit provisions, a mandatory referendum is indeed required. Section 23 of the Municipal Home Rule Law generally requires a mandatory referendum to curtail the power of a city or town elected official. Some of us here today might be aware of the recent court decision entitled Homan versus Town of Clarkstown, where the court ruled that a local law requiring a supermajority to repeal the town's term limit law was invalid, as such law did not require a mandatory referendum. However, the county charter provisions of the Municipal Home Rule Law, Section 34 in particular, state that any such curtailment of an elective county officer is subject only to permissive referendum. It's well settled that a municipality may conduct a referendum only if there is a state granted authority to do so. To date, I have not been able to identify a state statute which requires a mandatory referendum in order for a county legislature to curtail its own power by requiring a unanimous vote to override, revise, or repeal term limits. In conclusion, I would ask that the county executive approve resolutions 309 and 310. Please do not allow a misapplication of the municipal home rule law to deny the residents of Putnam County real term limit reform. Let's keep and improve upon the term limit provisions and promises that we made to them over a decade ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Yeah, if you can provide it in writing
Of course,
too, so
yeah.
we can have it in
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on resolution 309? There being none, Chris, would you check? I know Lisa had to answer the phone. If there was any submitted electronically or in the
I
mail?
don't believe there are, Bill. Which one is this? No, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the reading of the public notice, resolution 310. Chris, you got a little bit of a break. Now you get to get back at it.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the county executive of the county of Putnam at the county office building, 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York, 10512 on the 25th day of November 2024 at 3:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. concerning a local law amending the charter of the county of Putnam as approved and adopted by the Putnam County Legislature on November 13th, 2024 by resolution 310, modifying sections 301 to require a unanimous vote by the entire county legislature to amend, modify, or repeal the term limit provisions in section 301, subdivision D of section 304B is amended to modify the veto process as it relates to amended sections 301, requiring a unanimous vote to override a veto of an enactment to amend, modify, or repeal legislative term limits. Section 1501 is amended to modify the process of amending the Putnam County Charter, requiring a unanimous vote to amend, modify, or repeal the term limit provisions in section 301. Copies of the local law are available at the office of the Putnam County Legislature, room 318, 40 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, New York, 10512. At the aforesaid time and place, all persons interested in the subject matter thereof will be heard concerning the same. Comments will also be accepted via regular mail submitted to above referenced address. To send an email, please go to the following website, click send us a message, putnamcountyny.gov/county-executive, and fax to 845-808-1901. This local law shall take effect 60 days after its final enactment and is subject to permissive referendum. Dated November 14th, 2024, Carmel, New York. Signed C. Compton, Spain, Putnam County Attorney.
Chris, any other public comments on resolution number 310?
I won't go through the whole thing. Could I apply
Sure.
the written comments to 310 as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comments? There being none, do we have any public comments submitted electronically or through U.S. mail?
No.
Okay. On that, there being no other items to review for the public